Hey, welcome to Genre Exposure, a film podcast. Join us as we explore the wide world of cinema, broaden our horizons one movie at a time. I'm one of your hosts, Dustin, and as usual, I am here with Jason.
Hey, everyone, what's going on?
What's up, my dude?
Doing all right, about yourself?
I'm in that post-melancholy of the end of October, the end of Halloween.
Yeah.
We're beyond it now. We have to pack away our decorations and...
We don't have to.
And, go back to still just watching horror films all the time, right. Like we always do.
And still being surrounded by horror memorabilia and paraphernalia.
But now it's a little less magical,
Yeah.
But with our horror block over for October, we have a listener episode, and we're going to keep that horror vibe going just a little stronger.
Yay, more horror.
And we are checking out today, from last year, Zach Cregger's Barbarian.
Not to be confused with Conan the Barbarian.
No. And actually, we'll probably get into it, but we need to talk about this title even, because it's somewhat mystifying why that's the title.
Okay, all right. Yeah, we'll get into that.
I've got some theories, and I've got some thoughts. This suggestion came to us from Jessica.
Yay, Jessica.
Well, thank you for this. Fun little insider baseball on this. She is married to Colin, a founding movie club member. And she's actually joined us back in the day when we did the movie club for some of the films.
Sure did.
I remember when we watched, The Chaser, and we were all very kind of mixed about it. Some liked it more than others, and then she started diving into Google and researching the actual true serial killer it was based on. It was giving us all this extra context.
I'm totally drawing a blank on that movie.
It's the one where the dude runs around a lot and long chase scenes.
Ergo the Chaser.
Yeah, Ergo the Chaser.
Okay. It's still not coming to me.
Okay. I was a little colder on it myself, but, it's pretty well regarded, so.
Okay. I'll have to go back and refresh my memory. I've seen so many freaking movies. Sometimes they just blend in and you forget things.
It's only 3 or 4 years ago.
Dude, it's been a fucking crazy 3 or 4 years since then.
But yes, thank you for this. Got a lot of hype last year. And I never watched it. I just never got a chance to see it. And then when the suggestion came in, I said, I'm going to wait and do it first impressions for the podcast.
I had seen it before, but it was fun to revisit.
Cool. Well, before that, though, we're going to do all our usual shenanigans, talk about what we've been watching, all that good stuff. And, we are part of the Prescribed Films Podcast Network.
We are, proudly.
Proudly, and there's many other cool podcasts on that network you can go check out. Ones that we kind of rant about all the time because we're really into them. But then also there's many more that you can go out and discover for yourself and find the right little niche of the thing that you are interested in and care a lot about and want to hear people fill in your ear holes with info about it. So go check out all the other lovely shows on our network.
That's right.
But that said, what have you been watching? We've got one we're going to kind of duo talk about, but then...
Yeah, there's one we're going to double team here.
Yeah, it's a big deal, so we got to really focus on it. But besides that, what have you been watching?
I checked out another movie from this year, Malum.
Oh.
Which is the remake of Last Shift.
Yeah.
From director Anthony de Blasi, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and I hope I am.
Sounds good to me.
Now, I saw Last Shift... back when it came out.
Did you like it?
A few years ago. I did.
Oh, yeah, me too.
It was like a pleasant surprise, too, because it's one of those gambles. It's like, I like the synopsis, I like the cover, but it could be a piece of shit. You just never know till you go in. So I went in and I was pleasantly surprised. I really dug it. So this is kind of like a bigger budget reimagining of it. It's basically, it's the same movie. There's just kind of more of it.
Right. Longer runtime, more...
Yeah, more characters. I think maybe seeing Last Shift may have also colored my view of this. I wonder what I would have thought of this had I not seen Last Shift. Because I don't really think this is an improvement on the first film.
But you're a lean and mean guy, so...
I am.
that first one's kind of tooled to you.
It really is, because it's so direct and simple in a way, and, it's really... I really wonder how I would feel about it. This is a fine movie. It's good. It just kind of overdoes the whole, is it real, is it not?
Is there more lore with the demonic stuff? Or?
I'm going to say there is, yeah.
Okay.
Which maybe it gets over-explained a little bit, I'm not sure.
Okay.
There's some really good gore, though, and some really cool creature effects in it. And the acting is good. It's shot well. It's just, I don't know. It felt strangely bloated. Like, I don't think the bigger budget helps this movie.
Well, I think we talked about it last time with Michael. Sometimes a low budget makes a constraint that if you can work in that,
Yeah,
it actually kind of enhances it to have those like rails on
I agree.
to focus you.
Now, I'm going to go back and I'm going to watch Last Shift again.
Oh, okay.
And see how it compares to this. I think if you haven't seen Last Shift, check this out. It's not a bad movie by any means. I just kind of I gave it 2.5 stars. I'm right there. You know, it's
average.
fair. You know, yeah.
If someone has never seen either, which do you suggest they start with?
Right now, I would say Last Shift.
Okay, still.
Yeah. But if you prefer a bit more, I don't know. What's the word I'm looking for? A bit more verbosity. Is that a word?
Okay.
Watch Malum, I suppose. But I don't know. People out there, if you've seen both of them, let me know which one you prefer.
Yeah, sure. Let us know. I've been meaning to watch it. I just haven't had time to get around to it.
Yeah. Anyway.
Okay.
What have you been watching?
So I'm going to go with a classic, a throwback, because amid all our film antics, we've also been doing some horror tabletop role-playing, in which the last few weeks, you've ran some Call of Cthulhu, I ran some Call of Cthulhu. We love Call of Cthulhu. We've mentioned it before.
Sure do.
We are...
Yeah, Cthulhu.
Yeah. We are Lovecraftian devotees. And it really got me in the mood to watch some, Lovecraft-related movies.
Nice.
So I circled back, thanks to Tubi, I believe. Yeah. And checked out Stuart Gordon's Dagon from 2001.
Dude, I fucking love that movie.
God, yeah, I love that movie. I haven't seen it in quite a few years. That Blu-ray restoration came out like a year or two ago. Still need to pick that up,
Yeah, I need to
surprisingly.
get that too.
But I was like, man, I just really want to go back to that one. If you don't know it, it's not actually the story Dagon adapted, but it's the kind of like one of the most iconic Lovecraft stories, Shadow over Innsmouth. And they did some neat ideas to kind of like update it, make it modern day. And they actually kind of shifted it, made it be set in Spain instead of Innsmouth. I think what is it, Imboca?
Imboca.
Yeah.
It saves a ton of money.
I mean, you've got Ezra Godden as the main character, Paul Marsh.
Who was also in Dreams in the Witch House.
Which is also Stuart Gordon. And I'm going to call him, he is like the Diet Coke version of Jeffrey Combs.
Yes.
I think if you're doing a Lovecraft film and you can't get Jeffrey Combs in the mix, this guy is like your next best bet. Good performer, just brings it, has that look, has that feel, gets it all right. But yeah, they're just he's on a nice like boating trip with his girlfriend and some other people they know. They have a bit of an accident and he has to seek shelter in Imboca, which is a strange, mysterious fishing village town. And he uncovers this weird cult, the Esoteric Order of Dagon. And
it sure does. It's a very wet movie.
Very wet.
It's very moist.
Lots of water. And yeah, he kind of uncovers their secret and finds out he may have some connections to the insanity that goes on there and tries to survive and escape.
Shock. Gasp.
I love it. It's so faithful to the story, too, despite like its modern updates. Like, I mean, it nails every beat along the way. And then you get that crazy, awesome... just like very Lovecraftian ending, which I'm not going to spoil.
Right.
Because if you've not seen it, you should go seek it out.
There is some iffy CG.
There is. That's the one little like flaw in it.
Yeah.
I think
okay.
I usually rate it like a 4, and that 1 star is because of the CG.
Right.
Yeah. Which
there's also a lot of great practical stuff though too.
There is. Yeah. But yeah, it's just got a great cast throughout. Really nails that Lovecraftian vibe. I think. Like, Stuart Gordon's one of the best when it comes to that, but sometimes, like, I've seen the criticism that, like, with, like, Reanimator, it is good, but also kind of drifts from the Lovecraftian part to get more, like, just in on the gore and, like, the slapsticky kind of stuff. But I think this one plays it pretty straight, and
It does, yeah.
It was worthy of getting that Blu-ray restoration, and I hope more people kind of rediscover it and check it out.
Yeah, it's a great flick.
Cool. So now our duo thing we both want to talk about. This was kind of a monumentous thing.
Is it?
This month, well, for October, they released the next VHS film, VHS 85.
Yes.
Still kind of Shudder backing those up. I think it debuted on there, right?
Yeah, so we got, the first one was VHS, then VHS 2, then VHS 94?
No, there was a 3 because it was, what was it? Viral.
Oh, that's right. Oh, yeah. I try to forget that one.
Real bad.
That's right. Viral was the third one. Then 94. Mm-hmm. Then
99.
And now we're going back to 85.
Mm-hmm. And allegedly for the next one, they're leaning sci-fi. So
interesting.
We'll see how that goes.
Okay.
So I guess what I want to say first is, what's your like history with this franchise? Because I know we talk about it a lot, just because we love found footage and anthology films.
Well, I remember when it was first coming out, there was a lot of buzz about it. Like, it was making the festival rounds, and everyone was like, "Oh, this is great! This is fantastic! You gotta see this." And I caught it as soon as it came out, and I dug it. I liked the first one a lot. There's some really classic segments in that one.
Good range too of like topics and styles.
Yeah, it's a really good anthology. The second one also has some really good parts. The second one's quite good too.
Mm-hmm. I think it's really, really good. And then it has Safe Haven, which is like the best segment, I think, of any of them.
It's very good.
That's the Timo Tajanto.
Mm-hmm. I don't think I agree that it's the best segment, but it's definitely one of the best.
Oh, well,
it's the best of part 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think is the best just overall?
Honestly, probably the one we're going to talk about here in a few minutes.
Oh, okay.
I liked it that much.
All right, well, put a pin in that.
Yeah. The third one, I did not like at all.
Yeah, the third one's really rough. Weirdly, my favorite part of Viral is the wraparound story of like there's that vehicle driving around that's broadcasting all the VHS tapes.
Yeah.
And that's like making the world collapse and go crazy.
Yeah.
But
that sounds like a better movie.
Yeah.
That should have been the movie.
And then we should say too, there's also a kind of a related spin-off, Siren, where they took that segment from the first one and actually blew it up into a full film.
Which is fine.
And just to knock through them all really quick, 94, how'd you feel about that one?
I'm having a lot of trouble remembering this one, to be honest.
Yeah, I hardly remember it. I thought it was very forgettable.
That's one of Rotman, though, right?
That's the only redeeming part about that one to me.
That's the only thing I remember is Rotman.
Yeah.
And that's like the first segment.
Hail Ratma.
Hail Ratma.
And then 99, I thought was just, I don't think I have a good thing to say about any of the ones in that.
I'll say it has really cool cover art.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the original poster for The Dream Master, Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, that's a good vibe.
That's about the only good thing I could say about it. Yeah.
And then I think before 85, we got Kids vs. Aliens, which was kind of a bigger expansion of another of the shorts from the early ones.
Right.
The UFO one, I think, was in the first one, I want to say. First one or second one?
I think it's the first one.
But that brings us to 85.
Well, I will say something interesting about 99.
Okay.
Because the only really interesting segment was the one where they go to hell.
Oh, yeah.
Because that was made by the people who brought us Deadstream.
Which is funny because Deadstream is so much better.
So much better. Yeah. So much better. But I mean, for a first effort, this one isn't bad. But they definitely fulfilled on the promise they made here and made a much better movie.
Yes.
If you haven't seen Deadstream, watch it. It's on Shudder, I believe, right now.
It's a must-see if you love found footage. Mm-hmm. So 85, though, they're bringing in some big names. They brought in David Bruckner, and they brought in a personal favorite of mine, Scott Derrickson, to do a segment.
Your boy.
Now that he's released from the MCU and is free to do his own stuff.
Much better stuff.
So yeah, I guess the first thing I want to say about 85 is like, man, every segment is good.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Some better than others. There's one I'm not a huge fan of.
Oh, okay.
Though the ending is kind of fun. We'll get to that one. You want to take it segment by segment?
Let's do segment by segment. We need a little love, a little time for this one.
Okay.
I guess we can start with the frame narrative, just because they're never that big. So that's Total Copy, and that is the part that David Bruckner made. It's kind of this documentary team, and they found this like alien life form, and they're studying it. Mm-hmm. And it appears to be almost like a doppelganger of sorts. It can kind of morph and start to take the shape of another person.
Yeah, it's like they have it in this. They're studying it, and it's in like this clinical environment, but it's made to look like a living room.
Yeah,
and the television's always on, and it's almost always like exercise videos.
Yeah, well, they're making the mistake of trying to teach it with pop culture.
It worked on me. They should play some MTV for it, though. And we keep coming back to this in between all the other segments.
Yeah, as their research progresses, and the group that's studying it kind of breaks apart eventually.
Yeah.
Over like the ethics of what they're doing.
Now, the first segment is my favorite. No Wake.
God, it's really good.
Written and directed by Mike P. Nelson. I'm keeping my eye open for this dude. Because this begins, you get like 7 friends, and they're like out having a good time out on the lake. They get to this lake, and they're looking around, and there's like old faded sign. There's like little hints that something just isn't quite right. I don't want to say too much about this.
Right. The whole time you're wondering, like, is this a slasher thing? Is this like, is like Jason Voorhees going to pop up? Is it that kind of deal?
I don't know if I want to. I want to talk about this, but I don't want to talk about
Let's
this.
not spoil this one. But let's just say it goes in a way that you'll never really predict, I don't think.
Yeah.
I would be surprised if someone just like watched the first 2 seconds of it and then was like, boom, here's the plot.
Yeah. It struck me as being extremely original, and it is one of the best representations of, I think, what a nightmare is like. It's such a dream logic-y kind of segment.
And it's weird because the violence is so real and so brutal.
Right.
It has, to go back to Murder Party, that very like Saulnier vibe of just like, it's really in your face. It doesn't shy away from the how the violence looks. But then at the same time, it's like, what is going on? Is this real? Is this happening? Is this a dream? Is this...
I love it. Yeah. And then this segment kind of ends with a little cliffhanger. Which we will come back to later on in the movie.
And then that brings us to God of Death, written and directed by Gigi Saul Guerrero. I liked this one, but it's kind of one of the weaker ones to me.
It's one of the weaker ones.
It's a Mexican news crew, and they're kind of just getting ready in the morning, and then this earthquake happens, and it sets up this crazy, chaotic scenario of trying to get out of the building.
But they're trapped. They find this like fissure in the ground. They keep going lower and lower.
And caves give way to ruins.
Yeah. Shit happens.
I really wanted this one to be like a sequel to Ratma, and they get down there.
That's what I thought. I thought Ratma was going to show up again, and I was going to hell Ratma some more.
But it kind of goes in a much more, I want to say, conventional direction.
I will say it's cool seeing a different culture other than, European or American type folklore in something. So.
Always say, when are we going to get the Japanese segment?
Yeah. When are we? What the fuck?
Our third one is Techno God, directed by Natasha Kermani and written by Zoe Cooper. This one's kind of fun.
See, this is the one I like the least.
Oh, really?
I think it just goes on too long.
See, I like this one more than God of Death, even.
It does a good job, because the whole thing's performance art.
Yeah, it's a chick who's on stage, and she's about to do some performance art at a little tiny theater.
Yeah, and she's like got this VR headset on. It's all about virtual reality and pretty much her opinion of it.
Basically says that we've killed God and replaced him with this God who is like technology.
Right.
Realized as like a force.
Yeah.
And that she thinks that through her virtual reality software, she could actually contact this God the same way that you would have done a magic ritual back in the day. But now it's just been modernized as computer code, which is a cool premise I love.
The less said about this one, the better, too.
Yeah. I won't go much further than that, but...
because everything's in the ending.
Yeah. She attempts this sort of virtual invoking, and shit happens.
I might like this better than the previous segment. Yeah. You're right.
It's really smart.
God of Death might be the weakest, and this one,
Our third, well,
you
fourth
brought
one.
me around.
Our fourth one is Ambrosia.
Yes, which is the sequel to No Wake.
Yes,
the first segment.
It links up in clever and interesting ways, but that's about a family that kind of has this like ritualistic like murder spree thing that happens where whenever a kid reaches a certain age, they're expected to kill 7 people.
Yeah.
And it's like a rite of passage to join the family.
Right.
And
like some sort of evil bat mitzvah or something.
Yeah. And they're throwing a party to celebrate, isn't it Ruth, I think's her name?
Yeah,
Their
Ruth.
teenage daughter who has just completed her task.
And I really like the actress playing her, too.
Oh, she was great,
She's
man.
good.
Yeah. And then it goes in a weird direction that sends
we
it
can't
hurtling
talk-
and slamming back into that first segment.
Yeah, we can't talk about it anymore.
And that's where it really makes those 2 segments like the best of this bunch almost, because it's like that's so fucking crazy that it links up like that, and you go back to it.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
And then we get Dream Kill, which is, I guess, maybe your favorite.
Yep. Directed by Scott Derrickson and written by him and C. Robert Cargill.
Yes.
And this is about a serial killer that they're pursuing and trying to catch. We get some cool like POV visuals from the killer. And in the course of trying to get that, they have these VHS tapes that kind of like show the killings. And it becomes this very convoluted thing of like...
Yeah, because the tapes they're getting the killings...
Are before they happen.
Are before the actual kill happens, right. And it's a cool concept. It's a good segment. I like it a lot. It's just not my favorite, but
I would love to see this one blown up as a full film.
ooh, see, I think it's better as a short film.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure it can handle a full length. I'm not sure there's enough material there. But did you get Cronenberg vibes on this one?
Yes, very much so, yeah.
Yeah. Even though it's not really body horror, it's got that whole kind of Videodrome sort of weird, surreal.
And it's kind of got that like detached, like clinical feel to it.
Yeah.
Like they're never at like a science center or like a lab
cops.
or anything.
Most of it's in a fucking police station.
It has that feel to it.
Yeah.
Kind of like a Rabid or something.
Yeah. It's hard to put your finger on, but definitely Cronenberg vibes.
I just feel like all of these, they had so much like style and like just a vibe to each one that really like came off well.
It's a huge improvement over the last two.
Yeah.
Easily. It also has a really cool poster.
Like I remember after 99, I said, I think I'm done with this. And then when I heard that Derrickson was involved, I was like, well, I'll give it a shot just for him.
Yeah. After you told me it was good, I went ahead and watched it. Usually you're right. Sometimes
I'm wrong,
horribly, erroneously incorrect.
But yeah, like the credits hadn't even stopped, and I messaged you and Michael, and I was like, guys, the new VHS is actually good. Oh my god.
Yeah. Return to form. It's nice. So I am optimistic about the next one.
And you know, with the sci-fi hook, like I think that can be fun because I forget which one it's maybe in part 2 or. They have this segment where the dude gets like the eye implant and it's like a cyber eye.
Yeah, that was part 2.
Yeah. That was a really good skit, and that kind of leaned into like the sci-fi angle. Mm-hmm. So I think there's room to do that.
There is. 'Cause, I mean, science fiction and horror, they go together.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, if you've not checked this one out yet, definitely put it on your radar. If maybe you've fallen off the wagon with VHS, this is a good one to jump back in on. All right, so today, as suggested by Jessica, we are talking about Zach Cregger's Barbarian from 2022, his screenwriting and directorial debut.
That's right.
I'll hit you with the synopsis.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
In town for a job interview, a young woman arrives at her Airbnb rental late at night, only to find that the house has been mistakenly double booked and a strange man is already staying there. Against her better judgment, she decides to stay the night anyway, but soon discovers that there is much more to be afraid of in this house than the other guest.
See, I think that gives away too much.
Oh, would you say so?
I would. I would. I mean, I think there are enough twists and turns where that doesn't ruin it for you completely. But I think this is one of those movies that definitely, if you don't know what's going on, like you're better off if you haven't even watched a trailer for it. No, just going cold. So if you're out there listening and you have not seen Barbarian and mean to, by all means, come back and listen to us later. Go watch it. Come back and listen to our rambling, disjointed thoughts.
And it is on Hulu, by the way. So
it's also on Max if you have that.
Oh, Max. Okay.
What's that all about? Huh?
It's like the fine china of streaming services.
I don't know about that, but it is on there.
And then what genre is this? Pretty much horror, I would say.
IMDb says horror, mystery, thriller, which are all pretty much the same.
Well, we can discount the thriller part because they put that on everything, apparently.
Everything's a thriller.
Mystery, I can kind of see that. Like, there is a central mystery you're trying to unravel.
That makes sense.
Sure.
Should we just get into it then? Or
yeah, we begin on a dark and stormy night.
Yeah, the best way to start a movie.
So many good films begin. And we've got our lead, Tess Marshall, played by Georgina Campbell,
who I think is very good in the movie.
I'll just get out in front of it and say this: every actor in this is just fucking phenomenal.
Yeah, the cast is great. Everyone in the cast is great,
and it's like 10 out of 10 performances across the board. Yep. Everybody's bringing their A game.
Agreed.
But she's in Detroit in this sort of rundown, forgotten neighborhood called Brightmoor. And she's booked an Airbnb. She's there for a job interview. We don't have much more context than that.
Nope.
And she's just rolling up on the house.
and she's trying to get into it. She's got the passcode for it, but it won't open the lock. Mm-hmm. And also someone named Marcus keeps calling her, but she keeps declining it.
Yep.
We learn her name is Tess because she calls the rental company. She just gets a message, a voicemail. Mm-hmm. So she goes back to her car, but she sees a light come on inside the house.
Yeah, because she did bang on the door a little bit.
Yeah, she's banging on the door. No answer. She goes in, light comes on. So she goes back.
There's even a funny interlude, too, before all this pops off that, like, she had misread the code for the lockbox. And then she gets it right, but when it opens, the key's gone.
That's right. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So she's at the right place. Mm-hmm. But eventually the door's opened and inside is a man. It's Pennywise. Oh, shit, run.
Immediately, something's up because it's Bill Skarsgård.
Yeah. But he says he's renting the house.
Yep, he's a dude named Keith Toshko.
Yeah. So there's some back and forth about, I'm supposed to rent it. Oh, blah, blah, blah. So eventually he's like, well, come inside. We'll get out of the rain. We'll figure out what's going on. We'll call these fuckers and get it sorted out. Mm-hmm.
And you notice that initially and rightfully, she's pretty suspicious of him.
Oh, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And why shouldn't she be? You're going into a strange house with a man you don't know. It's probably not a good move, honestly.
Yeah. It's funny because one of the first things she does is get him to show the booking. Yeah.
She goes in. It's like, can I make sure that you didn't break in here or something? And he even says that. He's like, what are you trying to prove? I'm not some weirdo who broke in here. And she like goes to the bathroom and she's seeing that he has his things out and everything, and everything looks innocuous.
Yeah. And eventually, what we learn is that he booked it through like another app.
Yeah.
But it's clearly the right place, and they just double booked it.
Right.
It's probably some like middle management company that just lists the house on every service and messed up.
So Tessa's like, well, I'll just go somewhere else. And he's like, this neighborhood ain't so great. You probably couldn't see it too well coming in at night in this rain, but it's not a great neighborhood.
Which is very clever because in that first scene, they keep it so shadowed you can't see the other houses.
Yeah, you just see like an absence of light, basically. Mm-hmm. So he's like, just stay here. My name's Keith. You want some tea? Somebody left some wine here, like a housewarming present or something.
Oh, and it's funny, too, because her initial plan after the first one is that she's going to book a hotel, and everywhere she calls is, like, booked up.
Yeah.
And then he remembers that there's something going on in town this weekend.
Yeah, like some medical convention or something.
Yeah, and so everywhere's booked up for that. Mm-hmm. So it's really one of those, like, series of unfortunate events type things.
So he's like, well, just stay here. You can have the bed. I'll sleep on the couch, So she's like, okay, but I want to wash the sheets. Can't blame her there. So while they're waiting on that, they start talking. And
well, there's a really funny scene, too. After she washes the sheets, she's coming out and he has the wine.
Yeah.
And he tells her, like, hey, I was waiting to open this till you got in here because I didn't want you to think I'm doing anything weird. Mm-hmm. And I thought you might like a drink, but I didn't want to just go ahead and do it. And then...
Which comes across as awkward and a little creepy, but also, like, totally reasonable.
Yeah.
I wouldn't expect a strange woman to take an open drink from me that she didn't see me prepare or whatever.
Right.
She also goes in the bedroom, like, putting her stuff in there, and she finds his wallet.
Yeah.
And takes a picture of his license, just in case. But the name matches.
The name matches. Everything seems on the level.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So then they get to talking, and like he's asking her why she's there. Turns out it's for a job interview, and it's for like a director of documentary films. And turns out that he actually knows one of the movies that this director has made, and he's not bullshitting.
Yeah,
because she's like, "There's no way you've seen that movie."
Well, it's really funny because she mentions the movies she's there for, and he's like, "Oh, I don't know about that." And she's like, "Well, it's directed by so and so," and he's like, "Wait, who?
Yeah.
Really? For real?" And then she's like, well, you probably don't know them. They've only done this other thing. It's this. And then he's like, what? I love that movie.
Yeah. And turns out he's like part of this entrepreneurship that's looking to revitalize Detroit. Mm-hmm. And because the director's next project is about that. And he's like, well, you should interview me because I'm part of this collective.
Yeah.
So that actually lays a little bit more suspicion on him.
Yeah.
Because maybe somehow he knows who she is.
Yeah, like
he's like arranged this or something,
It makes him both more suspicious and also like less suspicious.
Yeah, and kind of endearing because he actually knows what the fuck she's talking about.
Yeah, so they kind of hit it off and get into like a deeper conversation at that point.
Mm-hmm. And she says that she's in a bad relationship.
Yep.
Feels like a kept pet.
So it's part of the reason she's trying to find this job and get out of there and kind of restructure her life a little bit.
Well, and he's like, if you're in an abusive relationship, you should don't let that define you. You know, you should get out.
He's very supportive.
Very supportive. And then he does a goofy and endearing thing with the duvet cover.
Yeah.
Showing her how best to get it in there.
Which is hilarious.
Yeah. So there's some attraction here. You know, they've been drinking.
They got a vibe.
Yeah, you know. And Bill Skarsgård, when he's not looking all creepy, ain't a bad-looking dude.
Yeah,
you know?
for real.
But, you know, he leaves her there to go to sleep. And he goes to the couch. But that night, she hears a sound.
Yeah, there's like a bumping sound almost.
Mm-hmm. And she gets up and looks, and the door's open. But beyond the door, she can also see Keith sleeping on the couch.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, what the fuck, yo? And so she gets up and starts moving toward him, and he's having a bad dream or something.
Yeah, he's having like a nightmare or something.
He's kind of like sleeping fitfully and kind of mumbling in his sleep. She like touches him. But as we see her also behind her, we see something move.
Yeah, there's something in the shadows.
She doesn't see it.
I like this shot because it's really framed well.
Yeah.
I think.
The whole movie is shot well. May as well just say that right now. Mm-hmm. All the framing, everything looks good. Cinematography's good. It's not like a flashy, fancy movie.
No.
But it's shot very well.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it startles him. He wakes up and screams.
Yep. And she's like, ah! So he's kind of weirded out that she's even out there, like, touching him when he's sleeping.
But then she's like, hey, did you open my door?
And he's like, no, I didn't open your door.
And it's funny because it kind of like is a sour moment between them both ways, because it's like her trust is a little broken because who else could open the door? And then he's like
weirded out.
Why are you out here just like over me while I'm sleeping? And
let's go ahead and address something that I think a lot of male viewers might already be thinking when they're watching this.
Okay.
Some of them might be saying, oh, well, Keith seems like a good guy. Why should Tess even think anything about him? Why should she even be suspicious? He's a nice guy. He's letting her stay. You know, he's not made any moves on her.
Well, for one, she's fleeing an abusive relationship, so...
Right. And two, why wouldn't she be apprehensive and nervous? I mean, like I said, I don't even think she should have gone in the house.
Yeah.
And that will bring us to the theme of the movie eventually. But I just kind of want to go ahead and address that and kind of have that in people's minds.
Yeah, like I know we're not through it yet, but let me just ask you this. Like, if that was you, would you have invited her in?
I probably would have. Now, whether or not, and it's like what a lot of people, I don't want to use the term incel. A lot of, or toxic, I don't know, maybe that's too extreme. A lot of men think, well, I'm a nice guy. Mm-hmm. I've never hurt a woman, I would never hurt a woman. But you know what? They don't fucking know that. And when you, on the average, men have like, 50 to 100 pounds in any given woman. They're stronger. Who are mostly the serial killers? Fucking men,
Yeah.
Why? It's like getting in the cage with a lion or something. You don't know what they're going to be like. They could be a predator. So I totally understand women's hesitation of this sort of thing, and I think a lot of men don't think enough about that. Mm-hmm. Because they typically have at least the physical power. Anyway, I just wanted to go ahead and touch on that a little bit.
See, I was thinking about it, and I was like, I consider myself a nice person, but actually don't know if I would go as far as he goes in this. I might invite them in to be like, let's find you another place to stay. Mm-hmm. Or even like, let me find another place to stay. Mm-hmm. You can take the place, I'll go.
Well, with me and my almost Catholic-like eternal guilt, I would feel like I had done something bad, I was like, oh, I took this, I feel so bad, Well,
listen, we were on vacation once, and the room we booked, they tried to give to another family. And they were like knocking on the door when they couldn't get in.
So you were already in there?
Because we were already in there. Uh-huh. And we just did not fucking answer it.
Well, I don't blame you. Because who the fuck's knocking at the door?
And they eventually complained at the front desk. The front desk called the room. We answered. Then they came up to talk to us. Then they were like, shit, we messed up. Mm-hmm. And then they're like, well, how do you want to fix this? And I was like, we're already unpacked, dude.
Yeah, you're in the room. You got the room. Right, no.
And maybe
I wouldn't have invited them in the room. I wouldn't have shared the room with them.
Of course, that's a very different situation.
It is.
Compared to an Airbnb. But.
Right. So we get to the morning. Her door is still shut because we saw her lock it and everything. And she goes to leave. She's getting ready, and she finds a note for her. Mm-hmm. That said he had to go ahead and leave, but asks her to leave the keys in the lockbox.
Yep.
And he says something like, "I had a wonderful night" at the bottom, and she gives a little smile to this. Yeah. So there's like
chemistry a little bit.
Yeah. And then when she leaves the house in the broad daylight, you see how shitty this neighborhood is.
Literally every house around it is destroyed, basically.
Yeah, like burnt out, boarded up, graffitied, weeds everywhere. It's like something out of a zombie film.
Mm-hmm. So she drives off and gets into town to go for this interview.
Mm-hmm.
It goes well.
Mm-hmm.
But we get a little weirdness after they're done and they're kind of about to part ways. Because the person she interviewed with is asking like where she's staying. And she's like, oh, it's just I got an Airbnb over in Brightmoor.
And she's like, are you serious?
Yeah, like her face literally immediately changes.
Yeah, it's like, you don't want to stay there. She's like, yeah, it's a little rough, but, it's the only place in town, blah, blah, blah. And the woman's like, well, be careful.
Yep, she even offers, she says, if you want, I can find you another place that you can go to and it'll be fine. And she's kind of like, well, I might take you up on that. I'll see how it goes.
Yeah. But you also get the impression maybe she wants to see Keith again, too.
Yeah.
Because she was looking at his picture on her phone, waiting for the interviewer.
Mm-hmm.
Smiling a little bit. Like,
So she heads back to the house. And this is where we get some like actual activity in the streets. Far in the distance, there's what looks to be like a homeless man just wandering around. And when he sees her, he starts screaming. He's like, hey, come back here.
He calls her a little girl.
Yeah.
He says, hey, little girl, come here. Don't go in that house. Come here. And rightfully, she's kind of freaking out because he's literally running after her.
Yeah.
And she slams the door in his face.
Which I love, like her trying to get in, trying to open the key code thing to get the key out to get back inside.
Yeah.
It's timed really well.
Mm-hmm. And he just keeps repeating, like, don't go in that house. So she's trying to calm down. She's in the bathroom, but there's no toilet paper. Mm-hmm. She doesn't find any else in the bathroom, so she sees this other door.
This was the first time that Tiffany chimed in to me, and she was like, who doesn't leave extra toilet paper in the bathroom?
Some dudes don't. Dudes.
I mean, if you're trying to get a good review on your Airbnb,
Oh, right. Well, obviously this place is mismanaged. They've double booked it and everything,
That's fair.
And it's in a fucking demilitarized zone.
So she ends up wandering into the basement after searching the house.
Yeah, this is your classic creepy, unfinished basement. Mm-hmm. Junk everywhere. And she only takes one roll, too.
Yeah.
Did you notice that? She only takes one roll. Like, okay, maybe she's not going to be there very long. You don't plan on going through the whole thing. But you know what? I want some insurance. I don't want to have to go back in that fucking basement again.
For real. Just take the whole thing up there.
Take the whole thing. But the door shuts behind her.
Yeah.
And locks her in.
It seems like it has a weird penchant for after it's open for a while, it just kind of closes itself and relocks.
Maybe it's hung in an angle or something.
Well, we'll talk about that. I have theories.
Okay. All right. So she realizes that she still has the key on her and her phone's in her room. So she's like, fuck. She's looking out that little window, looking around the room itself.
She's trying to see if she can find something to like boost herself up to get out that window or get the door open somehow.
And also just sort of looking around in general, I think. But she makes her spot hidden roll.
She does.
And she sees a little piece of rope hanging out of a little hole in the wall.
And it's like, why is there rope in the wall?
Yeah. So what are you going to do? You're going to start pulling on that rope, right?
Why not?
She does, and then this fucking concealed door starts opening. Mm-hmm. And now she's really like, what the fuck?
And I love how much she hesitates to go further.
Yeah, she's looking down, and it's dark. I mean, there's no light down there or anything. And she just says, nope. And we next see her sitting on the steps, like she's been there for a little while. But I guess she's bored, maybe, and decides to investigate a little bit. But she angles this mirror in the light to get it to shine down there. And
I like how that looks.
Yeah, there's kind of a short hallway, and then there's an obvious door on the left because we see a doorknob sticking out.
And there's light in that other room. Yeah.
So she decides to investigate. She's okay, what's this?
And she finds...
At this point, I wrote in my notes, I'm getting through that basement door one way or the other. I'm kicking it in to get back upstairs. Fuck this shit. Yeah. What does she find?
It's kind of like the set for, I'm going to say like a snuff film or something.
It's something the guys from August Underground would have, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a spare room. There is a metal bed frame with this gross, grotty, stained mattress.
Yeah, disgusting.
There is an old VHS camcorder set up on a tripod and a bucket.
Yeah.
And that's it.
And isn't there also a bloody handprint on the wall?
Yeah, she's a bloody handprint.
Yeah.
So she's like, oh, fuck this.
Yep.
And she hears someone at the door, runs to the window, and it's Keith.
Yep.
So they get the window open. She hands him the key. He gets her in. And she's like, panicking and rambling, which anyone would be, trying to explain to him what's going on. And he's like, you're upset because you found a room downstairs. It doesn't sound that bad.
And she's like, well, you don't understand. You didn't see it.
Yeah.
And so he kind of makes the logical jump of like, well, let me go look at it real quick. And she's like, no, we need to be done. We need to leave.
Right.
We both just need to get out of here now.
What would you have done in this situation? Would you have listened to her?
Got the fuck out.
Yeah, me too.
But we are avid Call of Cthulhu players.
Right.
And we know that after a point, you have to just give up, deny everything, and run away.
Yeah. And we've seen all these movies where, Spartan rooms with a camcorder and a stained bed is not good news. So he goes down there and she kind of follows him. She stays in the basement itself.
Well, it's interesting because she is just going to leave regardless. And he kind of talks her into, well, just wait at the top of the stairs.
Yeah.
And when I come back, then we can go.
But he doesn't come back up. She goes down.
She's waiting. She's waiting.
She's calling for him. We hear him say, yeah, like once or twice. But then he stops saying anything. We hear nothing. And he goes down there. She goes down there, and he's not in the room.
Right.
So now we're getting more suspicious of him again, I think.
Yeah, like if this is a setup.
Yeah, like he's just trying to trap her in this room or something.
Yeah, trigger to going in there and then sealing her in or something.
But no, because she finds another door.
Yeah, well, the back wall has this curious, like, white strip on it. That
Right.
at first just looks like maybe paneling or something. But when she investigates it closer, it's actually like the hinge of another secret door.
Yeah, like a wooden door.
Yeah.
And she opens it, and there's just these stone steps descending into the darkness. It's just carved out of the earth.
Which, actually, isn't this a Call of Cthulhu scenario?
It sounds a lot like one, yeah. Something I would write. But she hears Keith.
Yeah, he calls out.
Yeah.
Says, help.
So she works up the courage to go down there. I think she's using her phone for light at this point, right?
And man, it's way down there.
Yeah, it's down there. Yeah. I mean, it's like a mine shaft because there's supports every 10 feet or something.
This has clearly been created, not found.
And she passes this one room where all these large cages are there, rusted. And then Keith comes crawling out of the dark suddenly.
And he's fucked up.
He's fucked up and he's panicking. He's saying, there's someone down here. Someone bit me.
Yeah.
And we got to get out of here. But while they're arguing about which way to go, this naked, filthy woman, we think?
It's kind of a deformed, like, subhumanoid vibe going on.
Yeah. Runs up behind them, screams, grabs Keith, and starts bashing his head into the rock wall.
And make no mistake, you know he's dead because...
Yeah, this is not a fake out.
Yeah, she wails him into the wall.
This is not a Tobin Bell situation.
There's no walking back this one with a interquel or something.
Right. This fucker is dead. His head is pulp.
Yeah.
And yeah, she screams, fade to black. That was a short movie. Pretty good, though. Yeah.
You know, actually, when do I say this? Maybe I say this now. If this were just a short film and it stopped here, I think it's perfect.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I was not as enthused with the later acts.
Interesting.
Which we'll talk about as we go.
All right. Let's go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get a total tonal shift.
Yep, complete 100%. You're like in a different movie now.
Yeah, we get this guy driving to some upbeat music.
Justin Long.
Justin Long, not just any guy, but Justin Long.
As AJ.
Yeah, he's on this beachside road. He's cruising. He's singing along.
Living the good life.
He's annoyingly happy.
A little too happy.
A little too happy. But soon he is not so happy.
No, we learned that he's kind of it's like a producer, director type.
I thought maybe a director, yeah. But he gets a call from some very important sounding people. Mm-hmm. He's told that a woman named Megan has made an allegation against him, sexual assault allegation. And he kind of starts freaking out. He's like, what? No, what'd she say? So there's going to be like a news story about it in the morning.
Yeah. And it's funny because it's like a conference call with several people. And they're like, well, what we're trying to say... Well, he's like, well, is the show going to go on?
Yeah, am I fired? If the show does go on, it won't be involving you.
Yes.
And he's like, what is she saying when I raped her? And there's just like this pause. And the woman he's talking to on the phone says, yes, she says you raped her. Like she's not surprised.
And he immediately launches into excuses. And they're like, we think you should know that anything you say on this call could be used against you.
He's calling her a lying bitch and things like that. So then we get a shot of him with his financial advisor. Mm-hmm. And again, he keeps referring to his accuser as a bitch and misogynistic language and things like that. And he's told he's going to have no money in 3 months.
Yeah, they're calculating like his current level of spending, how long his funds will last with no income coming in.
Not very long. And he says, the advisor says you got some Michigan properties, but they won't be enough to sustain you. Mm-hmm. And then the guy fires him as a client.
Yeah, he says, once you leave this room, I'm no longer working for you.
I'm going to give your files back.
And he's like, I can recommend you some people, but no, we're done. And his suggestion to him is to sell his like swanky mansion.
Yeah, he doesn't want to do that.
But he doesn't want to do that. So he decides that the best thing he can do is go to Detroit.
Yeah, see these properties.
Lay low, inspect these properties, and see which ones he could maybe sell.
Yep.
Get a little quick income.
Yep. So we next see him like in a rental car talking to his lawyer. He said he wants to talk to Megan. The lawyer says it's a bad idea. Don't do it. And he says you shouldn't even be leaving the state. What are you doing?
And he's like, well, I'm not being arrested for anything, am I?
Yeah. And the lawyer says it's likely. Leaving the state isn't a good move. But oh well. He gets the keys to his property.
And this is kind of where we get the link up of what's going on, is that he bought this and kind of just uses like a management company to oversee it.
Right. So he shows up at the house we've spent the first half of the movie at. Mm-hmm. And Tess's and Keith's belongings are there.
Yep, her car's outside.
Yep. But no Tess or Keith.
Which he thinks is... He like pauses maybe for a moment, but then he doesn't really care.
Yeah, it's like he... Well, I mean, if it's... Our description may not be doing it justice, but he's a very self-centered person.
He's all about himself,
him.
Yes.
Everything is about him. He does call the company, and he's like, people left shit here. What's going on with this? And he's like, doesn't someone come and clean this stuff? And they're like, well, no one cleans it until it's rented again. Mm-hmm. So people could be squatting in my house? What the fuck? So we see him talking to his mom again, talking about the, in quotes, fucking bitch.
Yep.
He gets a call from a friend, uses the F word. If you didn't already like this guy, you're not supposed to like this guy.
Yeah, they go out to drinks, right?
Yeah. So his friend's asking him what really happened.
He's like, yeah, man to man, between you and me, like what really happened.
Mm-hmm. And he says, yeah, we had sex. She took some convincing.
Grab him by the pussy.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's really that vibe, though, right?
Right, yeah. He's a big shot director. He can do that, whatever he wants.
He might be an actor. I don't know. I never really got a sense of what he does.
I was thinking producer director.
Loser. Let's try that.
Yeah. There you go. So he's drunk. He's back at the house. He's calling Megan, which he shouldn't have done. Leaves a voicemail saying that he's sorry if he did something wrong, and that people can have different versions of what happened.
Mm-hmm. And he's happy to clear that up with her.
Yeah.
She'll just call him back.
Mm-hmm. Then he wakes up in the morning. He's puking his guts out. He's going through the luggage. He finds Tessa's laptop, can't get into it, and just tosses it aside. And it like slams against the dresser.
Yeah, it's so funny because he takes a guess at what her password might be, and I'm like, what do you even...
Right, where do you even start on that? Yeah. And he's never ever thinking that maybe something bad happened to the people that left his stuff here. You know, he doesn't call the police. Mm-hmm. You know?
Especially because, like, a laptop, that's...
Right, who's going to leave that, you know? Had he done that, had he done the bare minimum, perhaps what happens to him would not happen to him.
Yeah.
So eventually he goes down in the basement. See, he finds keys laying on the table. That's right. Like,
yep.
Whoever was here left their keys. So are they still here?
And he's like, oh, I've searched the entire house, but I haven't looked in the basement. I guess I should check there.
So he goes down there, hears a sound, like some sort of a thumping, bumping sound. He says that he has a gun. He's going to come down there and shoot them if they don't come up. Oh, and he also has to talk himself up before he goes down.
Yeah.
He says, I'm a fucking man. I'm going to fuck you up. All right, bitch, get ready to be fucked. He says this to himself.
Yeah.
To psych himself up. So in no short order, he finds the hidden door.
I also get stuck down there because, again, that door is just... Anytime you go down there, after a while, it closes itself. Mm-hmm. So he's really only got the option to go forward.
Well, no, remember, because he sees the room.
Yeah, the first time he gets back up before it closes. Yeah,
and his first reaction is to Google how much does basement space add to resale value of a house.
Yeah.
He sees this horrible room where bad things have clearly happened, and the first thing he thinks about is how much money can I get out of it.
Yeah, I think his first search is like, do you count the square footage of a basement room?
Yeah, yeah.
And then the answer he gets is like, well, technically no, but you can list it as a bonus feature if you know the square footage.
And he's like, fuck yeah. So he goes down there with a tape measure.
Yep.
And he's measuring this room.
And it's hilarious because he does the hall, but then he goes in the room and does like the square footage of the room too.
Yeah, and he's just moving this horrible bed around, and he sits on it at one point. It's like, oh, gross. But it's like, dude, seriously? You're that self-occupied. You're that
But I think the best part is he finds the other hidden door and the stone steps, and so he just like hooks the measuring tape on the top step.
Yeah.
And then just starts going.
He thinks he's hit the jackpot.
Yeah.
Wow. The thing is, I believe this is possible. I think I've met guys like this that cannot think beyond their own immediate need.
You know, he never vocalizes what he's thinking or feeling at this point, but to me, I thought it was one of those things where he's like, oh, maybe there's like a wine cellar or something.
Yeah. Right. And we've already said it, but I mean, Justin Long's really good in this. I've always kind of liked him anyway.
Yeah.
But he's very good in this.
It's
playing a difficult character.
Yeah, it's an interesting role for him because he usually plays like
the nice guy,
the good
boyfriend, like in Drag Me to Hell, or
down
something.
on his luck, likable.
Yeah.
And this is
a walrus.
Yeah. Oh, Tusk.
So he's down there measuring this, and he doesn't even seem to give much of a thought to the cages.
Yeah, he gets to the cages and just kind of glances for a second, and then just goes on by.
He's probably thinking maybe they had dogs.
Yeah, your subterranean lair where you keep dogs. It's all good.
But he finds this room. He sees a little bit of light coming out of this room, and hears a sound. And he goes in, and there's this TV on the floor playing a recording of a mother nursing.
Yeah, it looks like a old VHS tape or something.
Yeah, and you see what looks like be like a cradle or something.
Yep. And there's kind of like blankets down, but it's very, very nasty. And
yeah. So now he's thinking, maybe this ain't right. But then I like the scene too because something starts grabbing his tape measure.
Yeah.
And it's and going away from him. Makes me think of the scenes in Jaws. With the fishing line and stuff.
Well, it's funny because it's like reeling back to the thing, and Tiffany was like, dude, it's going to take his finger off when it gets there.
Yeah, and he drops it and takes off down the tunnel and hears something coming. Mm-hmm. And then we see that creature woman coming out of the darkness toward him. He's running away. He falls into a pit.
And we get kind of a jump scare, but it's Tess coming up.
Yeah.
Trying to silence him.
Trying to shush him. And the woman, we see her face a little bit better now. Yeah, it's all twisted, kind of malformed. And she shuts this cover on the cage.
Great.
Yeah.
And then we get another like smash cut to black.
Another tonal shift.
And another tonal shift, another reset.
Mm-hmm. We get an exterior shot of the house, the same rental house, but it's in the past, obviously. Yep. Everything's nice and green and well kept and bright and colorful. Mm-hmm. It's also shot in a different aspect ratio.
Yeah, I like that about it.
Yeah, it goes to 4:3. And I think maybe a wide lens, too, because everything looks kind of surreal.
Yeah. It was a good choice.
Yeah. And we see a man leave the house, and we see it's Richard Brake, so we know that's bad news.
So you know some shit's going on.
Yeah, something shady's happening here.
And he is Frank, who appears to be the owner of the house we've been focused on.
Mm-hmm. And he gets in his car, and we see some of the rest of the neighborhood, and there's kids riding bikes, people watering their lawns.
All the houses are good, nothing wrong.
Yeah, very suburban type.
There's some like TV, radio, interstitial stuff where we learn that this is the 80s.
Yep.
They're talking about Reagan.
Yep. And he gets to the store he's going to, and he's asking for plastic sheets and diapers.
Yep. It's funny because the clerk's really trying to help him, and so she's asking all these questions. He's like, "Oh, it's a home birth."
Yeah.
And then she's like, "Oh, you're going to need this and this and this. And didn't your midwife tell you this?" And he's like, we don't got no midwife.
Yeah, she's like, "Oh, bless your heart," and just gets him everything he needs.
And then she's like, "You're going to need some good gloves." And he's like, "All right, sure."
Yeah, and Brake is very Richard Brake here.
Yeah.
He's just, laconic and intimidating. He gets back to his car, and I like how the camera is also kind of locked on him the entire time.
This made me think of Angst a little bit.
Yep.
I felt like it was a send up to that.
It's almost like the camera is floating around him.
Yeah, it's like it's hooked to his back, and it's like that video gamey, like over the shoulder.
Yeah, it's like there's this invisible tether between him and the camera.
Yeah.
But while he's in the car, he spies a woman that he must fancy. Mm-hmm. So he follows her home, gets into his trunk. He's got his coveralls.
And I liked it because it's almost like the Michael Myers coveralls look. Yeah.
And isn't there like a tag that says Carlos, like a name tag on the front? He says he's there with like the water department or something, right?
Mm-hmm. He needs to inspect the house.
There have been outages. She's very trusting. She lets him in. He goes to the bathroom, unlocks a window, comes back out, says, "Everything looks fine here. Have a good day." We see him get back to the house. A neighbor stops him, calls him Frank. That's when we learn his name. The neighbor says that, "Hey, we're selling, we're moving. This neighborhood's going to hell."
Yeah.
And he says, "Are you going to move?" And Frank says, "I ain't going nowhere." Gets back in his house, goes down the hallway, opens the basement door, and we hear muffled screaming and cries for help.
So it's clear that Frank's been abducting women.
At least since the 80s.
At least since the 80s, and it seems like, the underground complex is to stash them away.
Yeah. So back in the present.
Mm-hmm. Which I'm going to say, now that we're past it, this segment was too short. I thought it was like really good, and I wish there was more of it.
I agree. Yeah. I could have done with more of this too.
Especially Richard Brake.
Yeah, it's always great. You never get enough Richard Brake. Back in the present with Tess and AJ.
Mm-hmm.
Tess tells him he has to be calm and not freak the woman out.
Yep. And says that all she wants is for them to be her baby.
Gotta be her baby. And this is when the woman is leaning down into the pit, and she has this horrible, old, gross-looking milk bottle that she's forcing toward AJ. And AJ won't drink it, but she leans it toward Tess, and Tess drinks it.
Yep.
So the woman, shoves it back toward AJ, and it's got hair on it and everything. Yeah. Oh, so gross.
Which I read a funny note about that wasn't intentional, but
really?
When they were doing the scene, just like how they did the makeup for they just call it the mother, but how they did the makeup and stuff for that, it just accidentally got hair on there, and then they're like, "No, we should keep that."
It's perfect. Yeah, it's so gross. And she's like, "I ain't fucking drinking that." So she gets mad. She comes down, and we'll call her the mother from now on, I guess. Starts treating Tess like her baby. She tries this with AJ, but he screams, and she drags him out of the pit and down the tunnel.
Yeah, he needs a little re-education.
He's being a bad boy.
But notably, this gives Tess finally the opportunity to escape.
But the mother drags AJ back to the nursing room.
Yeah.
And does the boop thing.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that was so funny. That cracked the fuck out of me. The editing, it was perfect. But yeah, Tess gets out of the pit. starts creeping down the hallway, and she sees the mother force breastfeeding AJ. Mm-hmm. Sneaks past, gets down the hall a bit, but hits that pesky tape measure.
Yep.
So the mother hears the noise, cries out, starts running after her.
Which she tries to talk. We should talk about that, but she can't really form words too well.
Yeah, it's like you can hear her say like baby, baba. It's like baby talk. Basically, is all she's doing. So Tess, that door is shut. Tess can't get out. She runs back to that little window, manages to break it out.
Yeah, she just breaks it the fuck out and crawls through, regardless of the consequences.
Yep. And the man we saw from before comes running out, and he's calling her little girl again. It's like, why'd you go in that house? I told you not to go in that house. And he's pulling her out, and then the mother, comes and like lunges out, but can't reach her, and she retreats back.
So she shrinks away from the sunlight almost.
Yeah, it's almost like a vampire.
Which we should lay down some stuff here. The homeless guy that is there, that's played by James Butler, and the mother is played by Matthew Patrick Davis.
Okay, good performances all. Mm-hmm. And the homeless guy, I don't think he ever gets a name.
I think it's Andre. I think we hear it like one time.
Okay, all right. Yeah. So Andre's like, don't go in that house. You shouldn't be in there.
but he says she won't come out in the daylight, but when night falls, she's going to come looking for you.
Yeah. So you better get out of here. If you're going to go, do it now. And to her credit, Tess is like, there's someone else in there. We've got to save him. Mm-hmm. But Andre's like, no, forget it.
He's done.
Meanwhile,
AJ's free now.
Yep, and he's using his phone to navigate through the darkness. I'm kind of wondering why I never saw them try to call anyone.
You might not get signal service down there.
Yeah, it would have been quick to show that though, but I don't think they ever did. I think that should have been established. I think it can be inferred.
Yeah,
but
I figured it was self-evident that when you're in your subterranean lair beneath your house.
Hey man, I get great reception down there. I mean,
do you have like a booster or something down there?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
What, you think I'm a fucking amateur?
But he finds it's interesting. He's kind of going along, and then you see a bell on the wall.
Yeah, and there's like some wires connected to it.
So he starts following that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And he gets to a door that all these cables and wires are going through. Mm-hmm. And he's kind of like, rightfully suspicious. But then the mother is creeping up behind him.
Yep.
So he's like, fuck it, I'm going through this door. And then once he does, the mother stops.
Yeah, she seems reluctant to go any further.
And there's that cool shot where she just sort of retreats into the darkness.
Mm-hmm. Fades out.
Yeah.
But this is sort of like a little like personal bedroom kind of thing that he finds.
Yeah, it's littered with shit.
Yeah.
It's garbage everywhere. There's this TV on, not playing anything.
Piles and piles of VHS tapes.
Yeah.
And we get what's clearly Frank, but now elderly and bedridden.
That's much older, much older. And AJ's like, hey, we're going to get out of here. The cops are going to come. They're going to be swarming this place. This bitch is going to pay for what she's done.
Yeah, it says a lot that he immediately assumes that Frank is a victim.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Frank's like gesturing for the bedside table. And AJ's like, I don't know what you want. Earlier he'd got him some water. And he's like, I don't know what you want. So he just moves the whole table toward him. Meanwhile, Tess has gotten to a gas station. And is talking to some cops who obviously couldn't give a shit about her situation.
Yeah, couldn't care less.
Yeah.
She manages to finally get them to go back to the house.
Yeah, but they're like, well, we don't see any evidence of a crime. We see you broken this window, which is shitty detective work because the glass, is
outward.
Yeah. But anyway, they don't give a shit.
No, they get a call about a shooting, and they're just kind of,
they're just going to go.
We have more important things to deal with.
Yep. They threatened to arrest her, and I would have been like, okay, fine. Yeah, just take me away from here. Meanwhile, AJ's in that room, and he sees rows and rows of VHS tapes with like women's names on them or descriptions.
Yeah, some are just like redhead.
Yeah. One says gas station redhead.
Yeah.
That's sticking out of the VCR. He pops it in there, and
we don't see it, but we hear.
We hear a little bit, and AJ's reaction tells us all we need to know.
Yeah, they give you all the clues with that room that you saw the camcorder and stuff.
You know what's going on in there.
But meanwhile, Frank finally gets that drawer open and pulls out a gun, which you think, oh, okay, so he's going to be like sinister to AJ, but that's not the case.
Nope.
Offs himself.
Yep. Meanwhile, Tess is in the house again and getting her car keys. And night has fallen, and she kind of pulls away where she's like facing the house.
And Mother comes for
Yep, yeah, she comes running out the front door, and Tess guns it, slams into her, slams into the side of the house, and pins her in between the house and the car.
And it seems like she dies because she kind of just slumps over the
Yeah, she's
hood.
like slams against it for a bit, breaks the windshield, but yeah, then she just stops. And Of course, we know better, don't we?
Of course.
We've seen these movies.
It's a horror film with some runtime left.
So now AJ has the gun, and Tess is going down the tunnels to find him.
He's trying to creep out.
She sees a light, and then she even starts to say hello, but then we hear the gunshot. And she's got a GSW to the stomach.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh shit, I'm sorry, and starts dragging her out.
Which is like, what did you think? You had the light, you had everything.
Yeah, right. Yeah, again, it's just all about self-preservation. He even knew there was someone else there.
But so they make it out, and when they get out, they see that Mother's gone. She's
Body's gone.
unwedged from the car.
Yep. And AJ doesn't want to go back into the house, he says. So they just start walking down the street.
And Andre catches up with him again. And kind of guides them and says, I know a place we can take shelter in.
Yep. And then we get a little bit of backstory. Not much. Not a big info dump or anything.
Some breadcrumbs.
Yeah. He says that crazy woman was born there, has always been there, never left. And said that her daddy was there making babies with the babies he made. And then AJ seems to have a moment of reflection. Because he's talking about how he has to get help for Tess because he hurt her.
Yeah.
He says he's done bad things. He says that he's a bad person. Or maybe he's a good person that did some bad things. But he says he can't change those things, but he could try to fix it.
I think that's still just him BSing himself.
Yeah. And Andre is like, you'll be safe here. She never comes here. And
Yeah.
you're expecting it. On cue, she busts through the fucking wall like Kool-Aid Man. And rips his fucking arm off.
It's sad that he's like the most helpful and innocent person in this.
Yeah.
He gets like one of the worst deaths.
Yeah. Gets beaten by his own arm. So AJ and Tess run off. And they're like kind of like in this little section where they're surrounded by barbed wire fence.
It's like a little industrial area.
Yeah, and they can't get out. But they're like, oh, let's climb this water tower. Sure, okay.
Why not? Oh, and there's a funny thing here that we should set up because we missed it because it was so inconsequential. But when AJ first goes into the basement, he takes a knife with him.
Right.
And the first chance he has to use it, he fumbles and drops the knife.
Yes.
So when they're going up this water tower, he's got the gun.
Yeah.
And he eventually fumbles and drops the gun.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, they get up there. Mother corners them.
Yeah, he realizes that he can't get away.
And then he has a
you
look.
slow me down. Yeah.
Yeah, he has a look. He's like, I know what I can do. I know how I can get away, and I'll come back with help. But you have to slow her down. And he just shoves her into Mother.
And she's like skidding down the water tower over the curve, and the mother sees this and freaks out and runs and dives.
Tries to save her.
Yeah. And AJ looks over the side, and we see Tess laying on the mother. They're both on the ground. There's blood pooling behind the mother's head. He runs down. And, he even says, come get your baby when he throws Tess off.
Yeah.
That's funny. He runs down, and Tess is still alive.
Surprisingly.
And he says, like, he's sorry, but he had to do it.
Yeah, there was no other way.
And he's like, I didn't even let go. You just kind of slipped. So he's backpedaling, making excuses for himself again.
Which is funny because this is the prime time where it's like, empty that gun into Mother.
Yeah.
Confirm the kill.
Yeah, but he fails to do so. Mother wakes up, pushes her gross, sharp thumbnails into his eyes. Some good gore here. And literally rips his head apart.
Yup. Very definitive.
And then the mother is like, seems genuinely concerned for Tess.
She's worried. She's like cradling her.
Trying to pick her up, take her back to the house.
But Tess has managed to get a hold of the gun.
Yeah. Holds it up against her head. And you don't know if the mother really realizes what this is or not. Or maybe she does and is resigned to it. I don't know.
Yeah, it's It's hard to read, I guess, like her.
Yeah, but she doesn't
emotions.
like attack. She just sits there, and Tess shoots.
And our final shot is her limping away as the sun starts to come up.
The song "Be My Baby" starts playing. Yes.
Yes, we need to talk about that for sure.
Okay.
But yeah, that's the movie.
Yep, sure is.
So I have many a note about this film.
All right. Lay it on me, man.
So where to begin? I guess we'll start with the director, Zach Cregger. So he's on record as saying the script for this started out because he read Gavin de Becker's book, The Gift of Fear. And that's a book that kind of encourages women to trust their intuition whenever they're confronted by obviously dangerous men. And Cregger said he basically used the book as a writing exercise, that he could take this concept and turn it into a story. And so he came up with this premise for a 30-minute short that was entirely just a conversation where a woman continues to ignore a bunch of red flags that keep mounting up as she's interacting with this strange man.
Yep.
And he liked that well enough that he knew this was like perfect to turn into a movie. And then he wanted to like make it a full feature-length thing, so he started to like conceptualize how do I build out from that now into a full narrative.
Right. And that's a very interesting subject too. Very interesting. I haven't read the book, but it sounds interesting. But I've seen psychologists talk about this. It's like how people, not just women, but of course women are the ones who are usually victimized. But it's like you have a gut reaction to something,
right.
But then there's that polite part of us that's like, I shouldn't think that. I shouldn't mistrust this individual just because they look a little shady or something.
But that goes back, right? That's like basically like us having like fucking animal brain.
Right.
Where it's like when we were just like wandering around in a field and we hear like a rustle to the right. And it's like, oh, that's something that's going to kill me. I should fucking run away.
Yeah, something unexpected or someone unfamiliar comes to you. And, okay, yeah, maybe, you don't need to be rude. And people are afraid they're going to be rude or something. Yeah. But it's like, and they always say, listen to your instincts, especially if you're a woman. Listen to your gut. If you think you're in a bad situation, you probably are.
A film I think that leans into that really well, and it's pretty recent, it's Speak No Evil.
Which one was this?
It's the one where it's the family and they meet the other family on vacation.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
That the whole core of that is that whole like I want to be polite, I can't be rude.
Right.
And they just get fucking ended into like the worst situation ever.
Yeah, that's a great movie.
Yeah.
Oh, they're trying to remake that in America. Did you know that?
Fuck that.
Jesus Christ.
It's perfectly fine like it is.
Yeah.
Let's see what else. We've got he was on record as saying that he had a hard time getting this movie made. Mostly due to its unconventional style and the premise. He actually pitched it to A24 initially because it seemed like the kind of thing.
Yeah, that's right up their alley.
Be in their wheelhouse, kind of an artsy horror film with like a deeper message and whatnot. And A24 passed on it.
That's odd. A rare misstep on their part.
Maybe.
No, it is.
In the end, 20th Century decided that they were going to give it a chance because they thought, could probably at least make its budget back. In the end, we've got this film that was I think a $4 million budget, and I think they got that back about like 10 times.
Yeah, it made over $40 million.
Yeah, and of course it got great reviews, rave reviews. I think it's done incredible on streaming as well. I know Netflix had it exclusive for a little bit at first.
I think so. Yeah.
Let's see, some just general production stuff. The exterior neighborhood shots were filmed in Brightmoor, which is an actual area of Detroit.
Yeah.
But most of the film was shot in Sofia, Bulgaria.
Okay.
I'm sure that was just a cost saving measure.
You can't really tell.
No. Instead of being a full body suit, the design for Mother was based on just having the actor effectively naked and then using a lot of makeup application to kind of build up into that look. It's very effective. I give them props for not doing any kind of CG weirdness.
Oh, I agree completely. I do it practical. Absolutely.
The expose that's about AJ, you see it for a second, the news thing. It's listed as being written by Kim Masters, who's a real-life reporter at that publication. She became famous in the wake of Harvey Weinstein's case for breaking stories about men in the film and TV industry accused of sexual assaults.
Yes.
So that's a very tiny thing, but it just kind of inserts it into the reality of that whole thing and like the Me Too movement and all that. Thought that was very clever. Apparently, originally the role of AJ was offered to Zac Efron. He turned it down, and I guess originally they thought like he was the perfect choice for it. And when he turned
He
it,
just screams douchebag.
yeah, when he turned it down, it made Cregger say, he said that he made him start rethinking the role and how you could portray it. Mm-hmm. And that when he started kind of imagining other ways it could be besides his initial perception, that's when they settled on Justin Long.
Interesting. That's a good casting choice.
Because again, he is so likable.
He is.
So friendly, and you want to like him. Mm-hmm. And then just in this scenario, the character is constantly repulsing you.
Sure. And that's what predators also rely on, their magnetism.
So I think that's a great call. Zach Cregger has a little cameo in the film. He is actually AJ's friend at the bar.
Ah, yes. We see the back of his head.
Yeah. Let's see. Special effects were pretty much all practical.
As it should be.
They said that Cregger made a soft rule when working on the film that he didn't want to use any technology that John Carpenter didn't have access to when he made the Thing.
Fucking A.
Because if the Thing could look as good as it does then, in 1982, they should be able to do the same thing now.
Gee, yeah. You think that prequel they made would have used the same motto, but...
That prequel, man, we would be talking about that prequel if they had stuck to their guns on
absolutely.
It. But the one big digital effect shot is from the 1980s flashback. They had to use some CG to fill in the grass in certain areas.
Okay.
Because when they tried to grow it or fake it, it just never came out right.
That's forgivable, because it's hyper stylized anyway. Yeah. It looks like something from a David Lynch film almost.
It builds that visual that the aspect ratio and everything else is setting. Mm-hmm. Let's see. When interviewed about the tone of the film and the way it sort of shifts, Cregger said that to him, when he was thinking about the visual presentation of the film, he wanted it to be a Fincher movie on the top floor and a Raimi movie underground.
Nice. I like that.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Let's see. Some little shot, nod things in there. When AJ's going through the luggage in the Airbnb, in Keith's suitcase, he finds a copy of Jane Eyre. Mm-hmm. And so if you know the story of Jane Eyre, that has an insane woman that gets locked away and is kind of sealed away from the world. Right. So it's one of those literary references that if you know it...
Mm-hmm. Little smirk.
Let's see. Mm-hmm. Let's see. Oh, this is just sort of a fun thing. Richard Brake shared a story on Instagram about going to a late night screening of the movie. And he said that when he was seeing it, there were a group of teenagers that were a few rows behind him, and they were really into it, and they were super terrified and screaming and jumping at every beat.
Awesome.
Made him super happy. But when it was over, they were trying to get out of the theater, and the lights hadn't come back up yet. And so they kind of whipped out their phones and turned on their flashlights, and were just initially waving them around to orientate themselves. And they landed on Richard Brake's face. And he kind of sneered at them, and they screamed and ran off.
That's hilarious.
Which is just fucking amazing.
You know he had to love that.
Oh, yeah. He's just so good at what he does and just leans into it. So then that brings us to kind of the last main thing I wanted to talk about as far as fun stuff, and that is that end song, Be My Baby.
Yeah.
Do you know the story behind this?
I actually don't know.
Okay. So it was written and produced by Phil Spector.
Oh, God.
Who for a time was married to the lead singer of the Ronettes from 68 to 74. So Ronnie claimed that she was imprisoned in Spector's California mansion and underwent psychological torment for years, and that it was only with the help of her mother that she escaped barefoot from the mansion in 1972.
Jesus Christ.
Also, Spector's two sons claimed that he held them captive for years, with one of the sons describing himself as coming from a very sick, twisted, dysfunctional family. So when you look at the song Be My Baby and the lyrics, it kind of echoes in a weird way some of those themes. And then when you have that as a lens, that kind of mirrors what's happened with Tess in the film. And then even the whole captivity thing that Frank is perpetrating from the start.
And it's also, even with all those reports and stuff, Phil Spector got away with all that shit for years and years and years because he was a big, important album producer. And then eventually he shot Lana Clarkson, piece of shit.
Which in a lot of ways is like the Weinstein thing. That's just another echo of that. Yeah. You have this very powerful person that...
It's an open secret. They could do whatever they want because they have money.
Mm-hmm. The last thing I have to talk about that's kind of an ancillary thing is let's talk about the title.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it called Barbarian? Let me give you what Zach Cregger said.
Okay.
which was that Barbarian was kind of a working title, and that there was really he just picked that randomly to have, and thought, I'll come up with a better name when I do.
But he didn't.
And by the end of it, he was like, you know what? I kind of like calling it Barbarian.
If I were to hazard a guess, I would say it would have to do mostly with AJ's character. You know, he's the barbarian of the story. I mean, sure, Frank is too, but he's not really the focus of the story. You know, they both use women in their own ways, one in a much more obvious, extreme way than the other. But it's barbaric behavior.
True.
What do you think?
Well, let me give you some popular theories online.
Oh, God.
I think this is funny. This is a fan one that gets repeated a lot. So the title is Barbarian. And in the film, you have an Airbnb on Barbary Street. So it's the Barbary Inn. Barbarian.
I fucking hate that.
I do too. Good. I'm glad we're on the same page on that one.
I really fucking hate that.
There's some other ideas that have been thrown out there. So the term barbarian, of course, that comes back from ancient times. You have like stuff like Romans. They would call non-Latin speakers barbarians because their language.
Right.
They would say it sounds like they're just saying like bar, bar, bar. And so some people equate that to the mother, right? The way she speaks. She can only really speak in like a broken language. She's never really learned how to influence or interact. And of course, the more obvious connection you might want to make is with Frank, as he is kidnapping and raping women, and then also perpetrating evils to his children.
Pretty barbaric.
Which is very barbaric. And then this is the one I was like, I wonder about this. So some say it's a commentary on the typical 80s, like macho hero tones a lot of films set. Think of like a Conan, right? Or any of those other like barbarian movies where you've got this rugged, ripped male lead, and he kind of just forces his way through everything and gets
like the Barbarian brothers.
Gets the woman at the end, and she's his, and he won her.
Right.
And he went out and he took her.
By right and might, yes.
By right and might, the same way that Frank is kind of just going out by might, which in his case makes right, to abduct these women. I don't know if the film set out to make that point, but I thought it was...
I mean, it kind of dovetails with the whole, meaning of the word barbarian. So, okay. I don't think it's necessarily that direct, but yeah.
No, as for me, I never really settled on a reason that's the title.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of just a thing that left me puzzled.
Okay. I like my interpretation. I think it works.
Cool. Well, what'd you think about this film?
I like this movie. I think it's a very well-made, well-acted, well-crafted movie. Is it the best thing ever? No. Is it fun as hell? Yeah. I like it a lot. I like the fact that, especially if you don't know what's going on, you go into it blind, you're not really sure where it's going. And I always like to be surprised in a movie. And this one was fairly surprising. I mean, it gets into some, more or less kind of rote territory if you've seen a lot of horror films. Toward the end, you kind of know the beats. You know what's going to happen once you understand the situation completely.
Yeah, it's just getting to that point. Getting to the fun part.
Right. But I think the characters and the actors really carry the movie, and the film craft itself. Is it the most important movie ever made? No. Is it the best horror film even in the last few years? No. But it's definitely memorable. And if I had to make a list of the top 25 movies of the past,
25
it would make the best of list of the movies of the 2020 so far.
Okay.
It might not crack the top 10, but it'd be right around there.
Okay.
So I dig it. I like it. I think it's a fun time. I think some people can really overanalyze it and actually get upset by it. They think it's woke. They think it is anti-male or something. It's saying that if you're a bro frat dude, you probably won't like this movie.
Well, see, I got a whole thing about that of like people that get that sort of hang up with the film, and it's like, I feel like it's coming from a place where it's like, I'm a dude and that's not me. But then it's like,
why are you so reflexive?
Why are you so why be so reflexive about it? Like,
why does it bother you that much? No one's saying
if that's not you, then it's okay. But you have to accept that there are other people that are that way.
Yeah. I can't stand it when people watch a movie and they're like, oh, that's talking about me.
Yeah.
It's saying that all men are this way. And it's like, No, clearly not. Keith's not that way. Andre's not that way. Not all men are that way.
Yeah.
But you know what? A disturbing amount of men are.
Yes.
Enough to make it a fucking problem, and enough to make women feel like they could be victimized at any minute, So, fuck off.
Yeah, I just think about the fact we have this movie, and then within a very short, equal amount of time, we also had Alex Garland's Men, which tackles some of the same ideas
I still haven't seen
from a different angle.
I need to watch that.
And it's like, clearly there's ground here to dig into and think about and talk
especially
about.
after the whole Me Too movement.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's systemic abuse happening.
Yeah.
And it warrants examination.
Yeah.
And toxic masculinity warrants examination.
Hell yeah.
And this movie does it. And it does it in an entertaining way. I don't think it's preachy.
No.
It's not. If you come away sympathizing with AJ,
in any way, jeez.
You may want to seek some help. You might have some issues, and we want you to get help.
But he's just a nice guy, and he was just trying to do his best.
She was playing hard to get. He just, yeah.
Woo!
There was no imbalance of power. Him being the director or producer or whatever. Whatever. Anyway,
that's just like he has the gun and then he shoots her and he's like, "Oh, but it was an accident."
Yeah.
Like, oopsies.
What do you think of the movie?
So,
I didn't give him a rating.
What's your star rating?
I'm going to give it 3.5.
Ooh, okay, cool, interesting. We're actually closer than I thought.
It's in between good and it's a little bit better than good, but not quite great.
I would say I am mixed on this film. Is where I would start from. I have a lot of high praise. I also have some heavy criticisms.
Yeah.
And I think it's fine to have both and still appreciate a movie.
Well,
but
sure.
So I love the first act. I think that first act, the original like kind of quote unquote short film idea, the source, I think that is just fucking brilliant and it's so good. I do agree with him that it kind of needs to go somewhere after that.
Right.
So yeah, it's got to be more to it, I guess. But I just don't know where it goes, how I feel about that part. So it's like I like the idea of these like other narratives, but I do think in some ways they took me out of the movie when they happened because it is such a hard cut and then like a straight reset. And yeah, it just kind of pulled me out because in that moment it's like you get the monster finally, and then you go through Keith dying and you barely get a second to process that, and then you're like,
"Who's this AJ guy?
Here's this goofy Justin Long thing going on," and it goes for a good while before it kind of loops back into everything. I don't know, because when Tiffany watched this with me, I've mentioned that a few times, she chimed in, and when it first cut to AJ, she was kind of like, "Oh, is this going to be like an In Fabric thing?" And it's like an anthology film, and it's kind of just about this house and the people that stumble there and fall prey to it kind of thing, or where is that going? And then it just, everything with AJ, it's like it becomes another film at that point, which I think is fine, but I also think like it goes too long in that before it ever like meshes back in well. But then on the other hand, the flashback with Frank, I thought was like super compelling and so well done. The fact that they changed that aspect ratio, they kind of jazzed up and made it like dreamy, surreally. I really wanted more of that almost, because that's where you're getting like the meat of like the background. Here's the origin point to this. This is where like it started and then became perpetuated more and more. And then also just the fact that it's fucking Richard Brake.
Right.
It's like, you got him in your film, man. Use him, man.
Yeah.
So now that I've seen this, I feel like I can see where the comparisons come to Cobweb. Because you've got this creature that's hidden in the walls, basement. You've got like several different kind of ideas kind of being meshed together of different tones and themes. Again, it's one where you can kind of compare it back to People Under the Stairs, I think, as like a origin source point for some ideas. Because you have these like deformed creatures that are locked away. You've got, they don't get into it a ton in Barbarian so much, but there is a bit about like gentrification in here.
Oh, right.
Where this is like a shitty, ran down neighborhood in a city that's become more affluent around it. And
the whole decay of the American dream.
Yeah, the decay of the American dream. And the fact that like AJ's just exploiting this house basically just for money.
Yeah.
So I feel like the film wants to talk about a lot of stuff. It wants to talk about toxic masculinity. It wants to talk about like the Me Too movement. It wants to talk about gentrification. kind of even wants to talk a little bit about Reagan era politics, which is also meshed up in some of those ideas.
Sure.
But for you, like you brought up the point, like some people are like, "Oh, this movie's too woke." I'm gonna say I don't feel like it went far enough for me.
Okay.
I feel like it kind of brought up a lot of these ideas, and then it never like pushed it somewhere.
Okay.
We did kill AJ, so he was punished for what he did, I guess. But I just felt like when it was done, I felt like I wanted a little more or something.
Okay.
The other thing I got to rag on is with the mother, and this is maybe just a me thing. And especially if you're listening to this and you've seen this movie, write in and let me know what you think on this angle. But it's like, I'm so tired of the old people are scary thing.
The old people are scary.
Like we got that in X.
I kid.
And I hated it in X. That was where that movie started to fall apart for me. And then I hated it even more here. And also the whole like the inbreeding makes you super mutant thing.
I mean, eventually it will. I mean, will it give you superpowers? No. But it will, fuck up your physiology. And
then it's also one of those things where it's like you don't want to question the lore because they do keep it vague. Mm-hmm. But then it's like, okay, so he's abducting women, he's raping them, and then he's raping the kids and making kids from the kids. And then eventually at some point when you go down that line, you get what the mother is. Okay. And that was in the 80s to now. It's like, how many generations does it take to where it's not a person anymore and it's this super mutant thing?
Right.
And that's... I got real hung up on that for some reason.
Okay. I just went along with it. I don't know.
It's like you almost don't even need that story from Andre at that point. Like, why even throw that in? Because that's what made me start thinking about it. And I was like, hold on. How long has he been doing this and how many generations did he go through before it's what the mother is? And I don't know. And I feel like that was where Cobweb kind of stumbled for me too, where they started to try to explain the daughter, but then they didn't really explain it enough. But they explained it just enough that you start to ask questions about it.
See, I think it explains it enough that you accept the concept. I think that's all that matters. But
perhaps for you.
But I can see your complaint.
But
real quick, I do want to talk about how you mentioned the Justin Long segment maybe went on a little too long.
Oh, yeah.
But I really like that segment, too, because I do like how it does humanize him. He's not just a stereotype. He's not just a bad guy. He does have layers.
Yeah.
That's people have layers. People who do the most horrible thing can also turn around and be, perfectly nice and socially charming. So I do like that. It wasn't just a one-dimensional portrayal of a shitty dirtbag.
That's true. That's very true. So then I guess to loop us back around some, the performances are great. Across the board, 100%. Literally throw it up against any other performance. Everybody's doing awesome.
Yep.
Camera work is great. Lots of good angles, lots of good visuals. The whole 80s flashback trick is just brilliant. I love that. Even some of just the framing of things, like the fact that she pulls up and they light it so you can't see the rest of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
So then you get that reveal the next day when she steps out.
It's great.
I just think that as a film, this is super competently made on a technical level. Like if you told me to just rate the technicalness of the film, I would give it 5 stars, hands down. Never even think about it.
It's a very impressive debut.
Especially for a first timer. But if I have to then hold up the story and analyze the story and talk about that and themes and stuff, that's where it starts to get shakier for me. Starts to kind of pull apart a little bit at the seams. And I start to go what's going on? I don't know about this. I don't know how I feel about this. So I think that as someone who is a devotee of A24 and really champions them in that style, I almost feel like I can kind of see why they would look at this pitch and walk away from it.
I think it's a little too pedestrian for them, for lack of a better word.
I feel like I don't even love every A24 film, right?
Well,
I think The Green Knight was a little weaker for me.
Yeah, I agree.
But I feel like they're ones that are very successful that do the thing, and then they blow up and become really popular.
So this isn't artsy enough for A24.
All of those films have the same quality to them where they have a point and they eventually push you to that point, and then boom, they put the fucking period down and make the statement, and then mic drop and leave you with it.
Okay.
And I felt like this never pushed me to that point.
Fair enough.
No, I don't think that's bad of it.
Right.
It is what it is.
I mean, comparing it to the best of A24 films is perhaps a bit unfair.
So yeah, so when you factor all that in, I gave this I'm confident at a 3.
3, yeah. I mean, we're right
I think
there.
it's very good. I think the people that are like hardcore championing it and are giving it 5 stars, I can see why you're going there.
Sure.
I think that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I don't fault you.
If you're out there like 1-starring it and saying, get woke, go broke, no.
Yeah, no.
Maybe you need to do a little self-reflection there. It's so competently made. Even saying like this is his first feature and I give it a 3, anything he does next.
Oh, yeah.
I'm there front row for it.
Absolutely.
I want to see what else he can do, what more he can bring to the table. If this was just, a first swing, if he refines that more, where can that go? That intrigues me a ton.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, he's definitely someone to be watching for.
So yeah, that's we're actually a lot closer in score than I thought we would be.
Absolutely.
I thought you'd be a little higher maybe, because you had really talked up how much you liked it. But
I did like it. I mean, a 3.5 from me is like a 5 from other people. So
That's true.
I'm so stingy.
So yeah, if you've seen this, write in. Let us know what you think. Let us know too, like thoughts you have. Like, why is it called Barbarian? Do you have a cool idea about why it's called that? What did you think of the themes?
Yep.
We always want to know what you're thinking as well.
We do.
And thank you, Jessica, for suggesting this one. I was glad to watch it, glad to cross it off.
It's a good suggestion.
Zach Cregger is going to join my list of like new directors that I keep an eye on.
Hell
for sure.
yeah.
So
Awesome.
celebrate it for that, if nothing else.
Wonderful. So, man, that is the end of a block, right?
Yes, we've completed our Octoberness, and we have one more block to close out the year.
Okay. What is it?
Well, it's my pick. And since we're deep in on horror and everyone's happy with it, I got to fuck with that a little bit.
Of course.
And take us somewhere else for a little while to close out the year. Maybe you could still get horror with this premise. I think you can.
I think you can.
I think there's room to play around in it. So we're going to do, and this is maybe a new thing for us here. We've talked about different permutations of what we can do with our format, right? And we can talk about a genre, but we could also talk about like a topic or like a director, or we've mentioned that from the start, but we've never really...
Right, we've already kind of stuck with genre.
Because there's so many. Yeah. And even now we're in the 3rd year of this and we've still not like hit every major genre.
No.
Because, it's the gift that keeps on giving. But I want to do a topic this time.
Okay.
Instead of a genre. And it's a topic that's a type of movie that is very near and dear to my heart. And I love all of these films and this style.
We've already done Pinku films.
I know. Well, now we're going to do Pinky Violence. No. I think those are good for like once a year. But we are going to do this topic. Movies that are about making movies. When you think about it, there's quite a lot of those. Because, of course, if we're using a movie to talk about ideas, one of those can be about the very act of making a movie.
Sure. Okay. I get you.
So I'm interested what you'll come up with. And then...
Yeah, me too, because I have no idea right now.
When you start doing research, it'll kind of unfold and you'll be like, But I got to kick us off. And if you're paying close attention to our watches this year, you'll know that I haven't done my obligatory once a year Shion Sono film. And wouldn't you know it, my boy's done 2 films that count for this category.
Okay, but we're just watching one, right?
We're just going to do one. So to kick it all off, getting in, it usually happens at the end of the year because I kind of like tease and play with when I'm going to throw one in, and then
you like to edge your
I'll
Sono as long as you
all
can.
Year.
Yeah.
We're going to go back to 2013, and we're going to check out his film Why Don't You Play in Hell?
That's a great title.
Which is a gonzo crazy ensemble cast film about a group of filmmakers that decide they want to make the greatest film ever made. And to do that, they're going to link up with 2 Yakuza clans that are at a war, and they want to film their actual battle to make the most authentic and most epic Yakuza film ever made.
That sounds dangerous.
And it's all the stuff you expect from Sono. It's bombastic, it's crazy, it's over the top.
Is it 4 hours long?
No, actually, it's a little over 2.
Okay, all right.
And this is easily streaming and out there. If it's not on an actual service to stream for free, you can rent it, I know. It was released in the U.S. as part of the Alamo Drafthouse Select line they were doing. So very easy to get at. And yeah, it'll launch us into this discussion about movies about making movies.
Interesting. I am looking forward to this.
Should be fun. I'm interested to see where you'll take us as well, and then we can close out with, I don't know, maybe go with like a classic of this style or something. Or
Well, real quick, Why Don't You Play in Hell is streaming on Peacock, Tubi. It's on Tubi. Tubi
Hell
once
yeah.
again, Plex. So yeah, easily accessible.
And it's a lot of fun. And we'll get into that next time.
Sweet.
Let us know films that you've been watching that you think are cool. Send us more suggestions. We've gotten some great ones recently. All the ones this year have been super fun to do. We need to start filling up the supply for next year. You can always hit us up on Facebook, on Twitter X, on Instagram. Email us at genreexposure@gmail.com. Hey, you may already have it, but we did mail out our first set of the stickers that have been much delayed.
And much promised.
And much promised and threatened.
It's finally happened.
And we made them a little extra special since we had to delay it for so long.
That just sounds kind of scary.
So I'll leave that to the recipients to discover. But in the future, we'll probably just be much swifter and just kind of keep it more reasonable.
Yeah.
But yes, if you do suggest us a movie and we cover it, we will get to you a genre exposure sticker somehow.
A heavily coveted, rare genre exposure sticker.
We can give it to you in person. That's an option. If not, if you'll provide a mailing address, we will happily mail you one.
Mm-hmm. You could put it on your car. You could put it on your mirror.
Bling out your life with a little genre exposure.
Put it on your Trapper Keeper. You could put it wherever you want.
We won't judge. But the people around you might.
That's the best part.
So all that being said, you have been listening to Genre Exposure.
Bye, everyone.
Take care.
You're listening to the Prescribed Films Podcast Network, home to hundreds of hours of free podcast entertainment. The shows on this network all have a common goal, providing you with the best discussions about movies and other forms of entertainment media. The PFPN hopes to fill your earholes with audio joy. Visit our website with links to all the other amazing shows at www.thepfpn.com. Thanks for listening.